Hi guys, welcome back for episode number 64 of the weekly playback. So I have a number of games to talk about. A couple of them I don't own, but I really want to add them to my collection because I really love them. And the first one is Earth. So last night I went to a game night in Rochester at Millennium Games, which is like the big game store in Rochester, New York. And they have a game night on Friday nights, and I got to play Earth with some new gamers who I'd never played with before, and it was a lot of fun. I really loved Earth. So Earth is a 2023 game for 1 to 5 players, designed by Maxime Tardif, I think. The artist is Connor McGooey, and it's published by Inside Up Games. By art, I'm assuming they mean like graphic art and like graphic design, because like the art was actually like actual photographs, which I thought was pretty cool as well. So I actually really enjoyed all the naturey photographs in this game. So I actually don't know like what the like story is behind this game, but it's like an engine builder in which you have an island and you are trying to create like an ecosystem that like, you know, will flourish and be good. So you have different cards that will play off of each other. So it's like it's an end game bonuses, hand management kind of game with tile placement, card placement. So you're actually going to have cards in your hand, and some of them you may end up composting, which will give you points at the end of the game. So I'll just throw up pictures of what the game board looks like. So you're going to have four cards in the main game board, which are like objectives that you're trying to meet. And as soon as you meet an objective, you would put one of your point markers on the highest point value for that objective, you know, because the first one to meet that objective would get the most points. And then on your own player board, you have like these action slots at the top of the player board. So if you are the active player, you will get the top action of the action slot you choose. But if you are not the active player, you will get the bottom, the lesser action of the action slot that the active player chose, plus any cards that are in your tableau or on your player board that have that same color action, you will get to activate those as well. So in this game, you're basically adding cards to your island, which will hopefully play off of each other and, you know, get you more resources that you need to add more cards to your tableau. So, you know, you need to spend dirt in order to add cards to your tableau. There are like these structures, these trees that you can grow on various cards, which are really cool. What else? There's like cubes that you can put on various cards, which you can then trade in for dirt if you need to, but otherwise they'll be worth points at the end of the game as well. So yeah, so essentially when you're at the active player, you'll place the block on one of the action slots, just, you know, take those actions, and then you'll take the actions of any color on your tableau or player board that also matches that. So it's an engine building game, but it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. There's just so many different kinds of cards in this game. There's like an abundance of cards. I really enjoyed it. I did find that in my own tableau, I ended up getting cards that, you know, putting cards there that maybe I shouldn't have put there, that later I didn't end up using when I would activate that color. So I think that, you know, if I ever get the chance to play this game again, which I hope I will because I want to add it to my collection, you know, I'll try to be more mindful of which cards I actually have in my engine. But I seriously love this game. For the game objectives, I managed to fulfill 2 of them first and then 2 of them second, I think. I thought I was going to win, but I actually lost by like just a couple of points. But yeah, and then you also have a compost pile. So a compost pile is just cards that you're basically composting rather than discarding into the discard, and composted cards will give you 1 point each at the end of the game. But the winner, actually, he ended up winning because one of the cards that gave him end game points from his own island, his own tableau, actually let him count his compost pile twice, which is huge. Like if you've played this game, you'll see that the compost pile is really big. But yeah, this was a really fun engine building game. I absolutely loved it, and I definitely want to add it to my collection. So if you enjoy engine building games, and if you enjoy just nature in general, I think that this game is one that you're definitely going to want, and it definitely lives up to all the hype. I mean, everyone's been going on and raving about this game. It is amazing. It's rated 7.9 right now on BGG, and I can totally see why. I really, really loved it. So yeah, so that was the first game I played. Oh, I will say, like, the only, like, negatives, if you want to count them as negatives, is like the trees, or maybe they're mushrooms, I really don't know, like the little structures that you're placing on some of the cards. They are a bit wobbly, so they can topple over, so you might want to just be careful about that. But really, that was it. So that's like the only negative I can think of. So moving on. Another game I played, I'll talk about the other one that I don't have before I move on to the games that I do have. So another game that I finally got to play that everyone loves is Innis. Is it pronounced Innis or Inish? So I don't know if you guys remember when I went to PAX Unplugged. If you watch my PAX Unplugged video, you'll see that on the last day, there were these two guys, and they were kind of like struggling with a stray kitten that they were trying to rescue. So then I helped them rescue the stray kitten, and they named this kitten Inish. Because that was their favorite board game. And now I can see why, because I finally had the opportunity to play it. So Inish is a 2016 game for 2 to 4 players designed by Christian Martinez, and the art is done by Dimitri Bielak and Jim Fitzpatrick, and it's published by Metagot Games. So this is an area control, area influence, like kind of like war game. So basically in this game, you are going to have a map that you're building up. So like, you start with a certain number of like territories already there, but you're going to be adding more territories as the game progresses. And you will have like these cards that you are drafting in your hand, which will basically determine which actions you're taking. So, the cards could be like, add like something, like add some like of your like troops to like a certain location. It could be like swap some of your troops with, the other players. It could be like, just different kinds of things like that. Like you could be adding a citadel somewhere, or these other structures, which I don't remember what they're called. So there's different wind conditions in Inish. So I think that there's 3 different types of wind conditions that you can try to meet. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what the wind conditions are now. I played this like a little over a week ago. I actually played it on St. Patrick's Day, so it's a little bit hard for me to remember what the wind conditions were now. But it was a really fun game. I do think it would have helped me to kind of know so the main cards you end up getting to know pretty well, because those are the cards that you're using over and over in the game. You're drafting them in each round, and the draft system is like, you might end up deciding which card your opponent gets. So I played a 2-player game of this, but there was like another set of cards which you could end up acquiring throughout the game, and I think it would have been helpful for me to just kind of glance at those before I started playing to get an idea of what kinds of cards were in that pile, but I didn't. But I do think it might have helped me a little bit. But for an area control game, like war game, in which battles are taking place and stuff like that, I really did enjoy it. I did find at one point in time, my opponent had one guy in like each territory. Like at one point I was sure I was a goner. Like, he had so many like dudes on this map, and I was really struggling. But then I managed to pull off like a really good move and got rid of a bunch of his guys. And then I had a bunch of people out on the map, and he had one person in each territory. But when you engage in battle and there's only one person in the territory, they can hop in the citadel for protection. So they're basically not killable. Like you can't kill them. They just hop in the citadel. But there is one win condition where like you have to be in territories where you are the majority or something like that, and your opponents have like fewer guys in those territories or something. So I guess I could have tried to, I could have tried to win by trying to meet that win objective when he had just one guy in each territory, but still it was really hard for me. I lost, but I would say it was a pretty close game in the end. But yeah, so it's a really good game, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it's a game that I would totally add to my collection. I've heard mixed reviews about the expansion. I think that there's 1 or maybe 2 expansions. So if you've played this, please let me know what you think of the expansions and whether it adds to the game or makes it a better experience or not. But yeah, I really enjoyed Inish. So let's move on. let's talk about Evergreen. So one of the games I played last night at the Rochester game night was Evergreen. So they do this thing where they have a teach. So you pay $10 to get in, but that $10 then turns into store credit, which you can use. And the game that they're teaching that night, you actually get to play it. Like someone will teach it to you and then you actually get to play it. And then they raffle off the games that they opened that people were actually playing at that game night. So anyone who paid $10 to get in has a raffle ticket, so they can end up trying to win a game. But if you don't win, then the game is 20% off for you. So I had that $10, which I used to get in, which allowed me to play Evergreen and Earth. And then it turned into store credit. Then this game was 20% off, and I shop at Millennium Games. It's like, you know, a game store that I go to on a regular basis. So I already had $10 of rewards saved up. So this game with the 20% off and then the $10 I paid to get into the event and then my $10 reward, I ended up making this game $20 for me last night. So I ended up getting it because it has a solo mode and I'd really like to try it solo. I think it would be a really pleasant game to play solo, but I actually really enjoyed it as a multiplayer game too. So Evergreen, let me just pull up the information. And this is a game I had my eye on for quite some time. So the fact that I was kind of able to get it for $20, well, I guess you could say 30 if you're counting the $10 I paid to get into the event. Not bad. So Evergreen is a 2022 game for 1 to 4 players designed by Hajalamar Hutch. And the art is done by Wenyi Gang, and it's published by Horrible Guild Games. They're like the same publisher of like the Railroad Ink series, which, you know, I like, which I haven't played in a long time, but at one point in time I was like obsessed with playing that on my iPad. So I think I'll probably start playing that on my iPad again, because that was like a really fun game to play solo on my iPad. So in Evergreen, you are trying to build a lush ecosystem. So each player is going to have a board that looks like this. There's different territories, like not different territories, but like different, like, you know, I'll just call them territories because I don't know what else to call them. So you are going to have these like, so you have small trees, which look like this. Maybe I should put those in bags. So here are some small trees. And then the large trees look like this. And then you have sprouts. The first thing that you're going to do is like, you know, plant some sprouts, and then a sprout turns into a small tree and a small tree turns into a large tree. You have bushes, which you need to like use like a special action to be able to get. And then you have lakes. And each person is going to have a sun, and then there's like various markers that track the various bonuses that you're using. So you're going to have like these bonuses on top, and anytime you have an action card, so like there's going to be some action cards. So there's going to be the number of action cards equal to the number of players out in the line, and plus one more. And then starting with the first player, you're going to take a card, and then you're going to perform an action that is listed here and apply it to the location of the card that you have, unless you do action D. If you do D, you can do it anywhere and ignore the color. There also is a wild card where you can just take any of the actions listed there and then do any of the actions anywhere. So the various actions are: A, you can plant 3 sprouts. B, you can do 2 grow actions into a small tree or a large tree. So again, small trees turn into large trees and sprouts turn into small trees. You can plant a sprout and then do a grow action, or for D, the one that you can do anywhere, you can do a sprout action or a grow action. So again, you're going to select a card and then do the action on the card, and each card has a bonus listed at the bottom. So the bonuses could be like a small tree action, it could be like a bush, it could be a lake. So you are going to have trackers at the top of your board. Anytime you do a bonus action, you're going to move your tracker first, and then that will determine how many of that bonus action you can do. So for example, if you did the bush, and you know it was your 3rd bush action, you would actually get to put down 2 bushes rather than 1. So when you're playing this game, you're going to have, there's 4 rounds, and in the first round you're going to get 5 cards, in the second 4 cards, in the third 3 cards, and then the last round is really short, which is 2 cards. And in each round, there's going to be a sun, and the sun is going to show you where the light is going to be coming from and how you will score at the end of that round. So when the light comes down from this, so on round 1, the sun is here, and round 2, the sun is here, and it moves just as it does through the course of a day. So you're going to be casting shadows. So if you have a small tree, it's going to cast a shadow of 1 space. So if I had a small tree here and then another tree here, this tree would not score a point because it's in a shadow. So you would score trees that are not in shadows. Sprouts do not score points. Bushes don't score points except for your largest contiguous area. So first you're going to score your trees. So small trees are worth 1 point if they're not in a shadow, and large trees are worth 2 points if they're not in a shadow. So at the end of the round, first you do that, then you score for your largest contiguous area, which is where bushes come in play, because bushes count as part of the forest. Lakes do not count as part of a forest, by the way, but lakes allow you to do a grow action on any 2 adjacent things, which is why you might want to use a lake, I guess. But yeah, so bushes count as part of the forest and will score you 1 point. So when you do your largest contiguous area, everything within the forest except for sprouts do not count, will score you 1 point. So that's essentially the game. So, on each round, you're going to be scoring depending on which way the sunlight is coming from, and you can't score things that are in shadows. So again, small trees cast a shadow of 1 space, large trees cast a shadow of 2 spaces, tree score. Then at the end of the game, so throughout the game, you're going to have cards put to the side which will determine additional scoring at the end of the game. So at the bottom of these cards you'll see these like sun symbols. On the side you're going to have cards which will show you how many points large trees will be worth at the end of the game in that location. So like for example, if at the end of the game I had on the side like it showed this, and this is for everyone, not just me. So if it showed this for everyone, each large tree in the yellow section would be worth 3 points. So you're also trying to be mindful of this, and the cards that are drafted, there's always going to be 1 card that is left over, and that will either be added to that line of cards that goes towards end game scoring, or it might even end up covering a card if it has like a skull on it. So yeah, so you can kind of draft cards also to kind of influence what the end game scoring will be. So it's a really pleasant game. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, so like I said, I want to play it solo because I think it'll probably be a really good game to play solo. Like for myself, the kinds of games I like to play solo are games that do not require a lot of setup and are just more on the casual side. I don't enjoy playing I'm not someone who would play like a Lacerda game solo, or even ever probably anymore. So yeah, so this is the kind of game I would play solo. So that's why I decided to add it to my collection. So yeah, so that was Evergreen. So I really, really enjoyed that. The next game I will talk about is Cosmic Frog. So as mentioned before, my friend had picked up Cosmic Frog on a deal of the day thing. And then he decided he didn't want it, and he knew that I kind of wanted it. So, because I'd heard a lot of good things about it, so I told him I'd buy it from him. But I've already made plans to sell it. I'm not keeping it. So, Cosmic Frog is a 2020 game for 2 to 6 players, designed by Jim Feli, and the art, by the way, is really amazing. It's done by Tim Barton, Jim Feli, Chad Hoverter, Tanny Petite, and Naomi Robinson, and it's published by Devious Weasel Games. This is a war game, and it's a war game and kind of a pattern building game as well. So you are going to have a map, you're going to have like this big area. And then on this area, there are going to be various tiles, hexagons. Some of them are one thing thick, like 1 layer thick, and some of them are double layered. So I'll just show you the green ones, for example. So really nice components in this game, but you can see the difference. So this is a thin one, and then this is a thick one. So you're going to have these various tiles placed throughout the game, and you'll have I believe the big one on top of the little ones, and in some sections you'll have just the little ones, not both of them. And you are trying to move your frogs around to pick up these tiles, add it to your gullet, and then move those tiles from your gullet into your vaults. So each player is going to have a gullet, each frog rather. So in a 2-player game, each person controls 2 frogs. So I will just show you an example of some gullets and vaults. Where is the, okay, purple. So like here is the purple gullet. So as you are collecting tiles, you're going to start putting them in at the bottom and then towards the top. And then any spaces that are uncovered will determine your movement points, basically, for the game if you decide to do a move action. And then this is your vault. So you then will be moving your pieces when you do the disgorge action from the top going to the bottom, and you'll place them into your vault. And when you place them into your vault, you want to place them to try to make it so that the top layers, so you can have stacks of tiles that are 3 thick, and if you have a siphon which is of the same color, thin, thick, thin, those are called siphons, and then those will allow you to reactivate crystals, which are things that come in handy throughout the game. So you want to try to create siphons throughout the game of different colors though. They can't be of the same color to reactivate a certain number of crystals. So yeah, so you're trying to collect these tiles in such a way so that when you can place them on your board, you can place them so that the top layers the various things that you're putting on here are adjacent to each other of the same color, because that will score you more points. And you know, so like in this game, like, so for example, let's suppose you had 3 siphons here, or maybe not even siphons, but like, you know, 3 piles but of different colors, but the top layer was all the same. When you score it, you would look at this section and you would look to see how many points you get. If it's a thin layer and they're all the same color, so they're called lowlands and highlands, that's what they're called. So if it's lowlands and you have 3 of them in a line, and you would get 6 points. If they're highlands and you have 3 of them in a line, you would get 9 points. And then the layer that you just scored, you would remove them, and then you would score the next layer. So that's how you would score at the end of the game. So, you know, there's like tile placement involved where you're trying to place them in a certain way. There's wars and battles involved in this game. So throughout this game, you know, you might want to kick your opponent's frog into the region where, what's it called? There's this region called the outer dimensions. So if you kick someone into the outer dimensions, it's really not good for them. It's gonna like eat up some of their turns trying to get out of there. You can steal tiles from other people's vault. So yeah, so you know, there's a lot of take that in this game. If you do not like take that, I do not think you will enjoy this game. So yeah, so for me, it was an okay game. I had a bad experience while playing it, which maybe I'll talk about at the end of the video, and talk about why I am actually culling this game, because I did not enjoy my experience of it. But that will also have to do with my question of the week, so I'll save that for the end of the video. So yeah, so let me just show you some of the cards. Oh yeah, let me just talk about the actions. So you do also have, so there are these action cards, and there's going to be a pile that's shuffled, and then it'll determine whose action it is, and so based on which frog gets to take its actions. So it might be that you have like you know, yellow frog take like 3 actions in a row just because yellow frog's tile turn comes up that many times. There's going to be 2 events during the game. There's like during each round, there's a splinter that happens where certain parts of the tiles on that map break off, and so you end up getting more of the ether and less of the land mass to collect. And then there's also going to be another kind of event, I think it's called an Aeon Flux or something like that, that will remove your special ability card that you have. So each person is going to have a special ability card, which will also determine like how many dice you get to roll during battles and stuff like that. I will say that the artwork on these cards is just absolutely amazing. Like the frog artwork is really cool. But yeah, so really love the artwork, and it does come with player aids, which can be, you know, are very useful in this game. And then that shows you like the different kinds of land masses. So like the various actions available on the shard, which is that landmass, are like to attack, to recover, to harvest. Like harvesting is when you take those tiles and add them to your gut. Slipstream, leap, and then if you're in the ether, which is outside of the shard, you can attack, raid, disgorge, which is when you move tiles from your gullet into your vault, recover land. And then, you know, there's different kinds of powers you have and you're engaging in combat. The frogs are pretty cool. I'll just show you a couple of the frogs. So if you're playing a 2-player game, it's recommended that you use the same 2 frogs for your colors so that it'll be easy to recognize which frogs are yours. So you have 2 of each kind, and there's 3 different kinds in total. And then there are dice as well for like the various combats that you'll be engaging in. So yeah, really nice components. You know, I can see that this being, you know, I can see it being a game that a lot of people would enjoy, but for me, I just had a bad experience with it, so I just wanted to cull it, but I'll talk about that later. So yeah, so I played Cosmic Frog. Let's move on. So I will talk about 2 games that I covered recently for their Kickstarters or game crowdfunding campaigns. The first one that I'll talk about is Tolerance. So Tolerance is a trick-taking game. Let me just bring up the information. So this is currently on GameFound. It has, let me just see how many days it has left on GameFound. 21 days. Wow, it's already funded. So both of these games have already funded. So Tolerance has 21 days left on GameFound. So this is a trick-taking game. It's a bit the scoring can be a little bit, well, let me just read the information first. So it's for 3 to 5 players, designed by Timo Multamaki, and the artwork is done by Lars Monk, and it's published by Dragon Dawn Productions, and it's for 3 to 5 players. So this is a trick-taking game in which you can have asymmetrical abilities like powers or not. So it's recommended for the beginning game that you do not have asymmetrical characters. So there's going to be like these different character sheets, these like these, but if you want to not play asymmetrically, you can then just use Bertram, which is recommended for your first game. And that will determine how various cards score around your own player board. So each person is going to have a player board in which you're putting the cards, like if you win a trick, you'll be putting cards around this player board in either the deceased or living section for Catholics or Protestants, or for those not affiliated with any religion. And this game is played over 3 rounds, and in each round there are 12 tricks, and the rounds each like determine what the prevailing religion is depending on who the monarch is in that current round. It's a, you know, it's like any other trick-taking game in which you have like the lead suit and you're trying to beat the lead suit, but there's a lot more to it when you get into the scoring of the game, and that's where a little bit difficulty can come in, like when you start applying powers and you start trying to determine what's going to happen. It requires a little bit more thinking power than your average trick-taking game. So if you don't mind that, then I think you will enjoy it, especially if you like English history. So it's a good trick-taking game, but you know, it can just be a little bit to get used to when it comes to applying the effects and the order in which you apply them, and then determining where cards go, and then the scoring at the end. So, you know, I think with multiple plays, it's something that would become a little bit easier to do. But yeah, so the artwork is really cool. Let me just show you some of the artwork as well. So yeah, so if you enjoy trick-taking games, then definitely check out this one. Let's move on to the last game. And the last game is something that I would describe as more of a party game. And that is Cursed Goblins, which is also funded. So this is currently on Kickstarter. Let me just bring up the information for that. So Cursed Goblins is a game for 2 to 5 players, designed by, it actually doesn't say who it's designed by, it just says publisher Goblin Box Games. And this is currently on Kickstarter, and it's funded, and it has 16 days to go. So this is a game in which you are basically trying to eliminate your opponents. You can't see your own cards. Again, you can just watch my overview videos, but basically you're going to have a hand of cards which you can't see, but other players can see, and you are trying to place down cards in either your own player area if you think it's going to benefit you, or in other people's player area. And you know, if you get a certain number of damage points, which varies depending on the player count, then you could be eliminated from this game. You just want to be the last one standing. So you know, you're going to be placing cards in player areas in ascending order from numbers 1 to, you know, going from 1 to 2 to 3, but there are wilds which can like take the place of any number, like so for example this card, but you need to place them according to their own colors. But then there are chickens which get their own pile. So you know, in this game it's like a party game because, you know, you're just kind of having fun, and you're just, you know, also at the end of your turn you get to give information to someone and like tell them, okay, in your hand you have like chickens, or in your hand you have blue cards, or you know, so you'll be giving information to other players, and you can't lie when you're giving information, otherwise the game would just be pure chaos. So you can't lie when you give bits of information, you have to tell the truth. And I guess, you know, so you can play this game 2 players, but of course if you're playing it at like 3 or more players, then I guess there would be definitely a way to verify that, yeah, you know, you're telling the truth. So yeah, if you are looking for a fun party game that's like, you know, quick to play, then Cursed Goblins, it's like a nice little filler game that you can play, or, you know, it's something I imagine you can play while you're just hanging out at a pub or something like that. So yeah, so this is currently on Kickstarter and it's already funded as well. So moving on, let's move on to, I'm not backing anything at the moment. I am due to receive like, you know, production copies of these games, but they don't usually, if I'm, you know, if I've covered a game and I'm going to receive a production copy, if it has a pledge manager access, then I'll just back at $1 so I can just follow along on the updates. But a lot of campaigns don't have that, so in which case I don't back them at the full price then. So yeah, so I'm currently not backing anything. So let's move on to games that I've received or bought. So I already showed you guys Evergreen, which I managed to get for $20. So let's move on to a couple that I'm really excited about. So I heard many good things about Deadly Dowagers. So this is a game that just came out recently from Tabletop Tycoon. And I think the release date was actually International Women's Day. So quite recently. So this is a 2023 game for 2 to 6 players, designed by Sarah Shipp, and the art is done by Mercedes Palacios, and it's published by Sparkworks and Tabletop Tycoon. So I saw this on Instagram when it was International Women's Day, and I was like, oh my god, I want this game, because it's someone who is obsessed with like Pride and Prejudice and Downton Abbey and all of those things. And Bridgerton, I just absolutely wanted this game. I was like, I just have to have it. So you have these different characters, and I just really, I'll show you the other side of the board as well. But here are the different characters. I think we're at the beginning again. I don't know. Yeah, and then here's like the different like player boards with like, I think it describes like which actions you can take. Yeah. So, and then it comes with like, you know, different like money tokens and stuff like that, like various amounts of money, and then just a bunch of cards. So I'll just show you some cards. So I think the objective of the game is that you are trying to marry the Duke. That's what it looked like, I think. So I don't know how it plays, but I'm super excited to play this. I really hope I can play it tomorrow at a game day that I'm planning on going to. I really hope so. Like, I really want to play this. so yeah, but it looks really good. There's just a lot of cards, so I don't think I'll sleeve them. It doesn't seem like the kind of game that would like be hard to get in the future if I want it. I mean, it's published by Tabletop Tycoon, so I don't think so. But yeah, so I'm not even sure if I sleeved it, if it fit in the box anymore, to be honest. So yeah, so I'm really excited to play this game. So, and then it has like these pieces that have like holes in the center. I don't know what those are supposed to be, but it also comes with those. But yeah, let me just, I think it says your objective is to marry, yeah, objective, be the first person to marry the Duke. But it says you play as middle-class Victorian women. You play as a middle-class Victorian woman who would kill to be a duchess. Since you were not lucky enough to be born into the aristocracy, aristocracy. Why can't I pronounce that word today? Aristocracy. You know what I mean. Usually I can pronounce that word. The only way to attract a noble is to have a large enough dowry. Fortunately, when your parents died, they left you with a small dowry and some land. You must build wealth through investments and strategic serial marriages. Be careful not to gain too much infamy or the Duke may pass you over for another bride. So yeah, so it seems like a lot of fun. So yeah, Deadly Dowagers, definitely want to play this soon. So I was really excited when this came in. A game that showed up totally unexpectedly, but I was very happy to receive, is Classic Art by Rainer Knizia from Simon Games. So apparently this is a new version. In fact, I already marked it as owned on Board Game Geek. So I received an email from Board Game Geek today because it's apparent, like, so apparently this is members only with the addition of a 2-player variant. And then apparently there's another game called Glenn's Gallery, which I guess members only was a new edition of Glenn's Gallery. So maybe this is like the 3rd re-implementation of the same game. so they're thinking of merging all of the entries on Board Game Geek. So I guess because I marked it as owned already on Board Game Geek, I got sent this message from like the administrator or whatever, telling me that they're going to merge it. So if I like write a review or rate the game, like they'll just be merged or something like that. So I think that this is a game in which you are predicting which artwork will do really well. So it comes with a bunch of different, so here's the insert. So for this, I did sleeve the cards because it seems like the kind of game I would really enjoy. And I just happen to have the right sized sleeves like hanging around. Well, not hanging around, but like in a box. So yeah, so there's different kinds of art category. I'm not a huge fan of the sculpture and like the sketch. The sketch is okay, I guess. Like I wish they had done like impressionist artwork or like something more like Picasso, like surreal artwork as one of the categories. I think that would have been cool, but I guess because it's called classic art, they had to go with more classical categories. But yeah, I mean, these are actual artworks that actually exist. So yeah. So that's pretty cool. And then each person is gonna have like a certain number of tokens and stuff. And then the first player marker is this like pillar. So yeah, so that is the insert. So I hope I can play this tomorrow as well. So I'm really excited to play this. Another game that I'm super excited to play that came in is Fractured Sky from Ivy Games. So Fractured Sky is from Ivy Games, and let me just pull up the information for that. That is hitting Kickstarter on April 11th. So I have a little bit of time to play this. So it's for 1 to 5 players, designed by Max Anderson, Zach Dixon, and Austin Harrison. And this is an area majority influence constrained bidding deduction game. The artwork is pretty cool. I did read the rule book and I was actually ready to play this game, but then as we got into the a little later in the rule book, I learned that you need certain cards if you're playing a 2-player game, which this copy did not come with. So I'm going to have to play a 3-player game of this at some point. So here is an example of a player board, or a screen rather. This is a screen. And then here is the main board. And I guess depending on player count, you'll use one side or the other. I like the artwork. The artwork is pretty cool. Here are some examples of some player tokens. So again, this is not the deluxe version. The deluxe version is going to come with like these miniatures and apparently even have magnets. So that's crazy. But yeah, and this goes beneath the main board. There's going to be like bidding and stuff in this game. And let me just show you some of the cards. So like there's like different locations on the board, and from what I remember when I read the rules, it's a little bit hard for me to remember. Like you can place markets and fortresses and skimmers, and you are then trying to bid on different locations, I think. Like there's like blind bidding involved. I don't remember too much. I have to read the rules again now because it's been a while. But yeah, so the components are really cool. Again, haven't played it, so it's a bit hard for me to remember, but like I don't have the deluxe version, but I have the one with all of these components. But from what I remembered from reading, oh, and then there's also these, like you're trying to collect shards and stuff. and there's like coins and stuff like that. So from what I remember, I don't think it's a game that like you'll need the deluxe edition. It'll just like maybe enhance your experience a little bit if you get to see these like nice structures popping out of the board. But I don't think it's like, you know, going to like really, unless it's a game that you probably play a lot, I don't think it's like going to be something that, you know, will make or break your experience. But if it's a game that you think you'll really love and you'll want to play a lot, then I imagine you'll probably maybe want the deluxe edition, but I can imagine it being quite pricey if there's magnets involved. So yeah, so I don't have the AI or the cards necessary for a 2-player game, so I'm going to have to play this 3 players. But I recently made some new gaming friends in Rochester, so when I went to the Rochester game night last night, so I hope that I'll get to play it at 3 players soon. Yeah. So this arrived. So that is Fractured Sky. So those are all the games that arrived. So now let's move on. So let me go on to games that I'm culling and talk about my Cosmic Frog experience. So I played Cosmic Frog. I played a 2-player game of it the other day, and I played with someone who typically wins games against me. So I lose games a lot, and that's not something that I'm like ashamed to admit. Like when I play games, I play to have a fun time, and just, you know, it's an enjoyable experience for me to try to like, you know, kind of like solve a puzzle in the company of people, hopefully who I enjoy. Like it's just something, you know, that's fun for me. But I think that this opponent that I was playing against, I think his main objective is to win. So he describes playing board games as playing against the game and not against the person. So, and even when he wins, sometimes he can be a little bit of a, you know, he can gloat about his wins. So what happened the other day was when we played Cosmic Frog and I scored, you know, and I scored like 47 points or something like that, and he scored like 60 some points. He won. So I was like, yeah, good, you know, congratulations, you won, that's fine, you know, because they play to have fun. And then we put away the game, and then he said he believed that I scored incorrectly and that I should have had a lower amount of points than I did. So I was like, no, I don't think I scored incorrectly. Like I even double checked my scores because I do that every single time I play a game. I'll like calculate and then calculate again. And sometimes I'll even calculate my scores for a 3rd time. Like I'm very meticulous when it comes to scoring. And even another friend who I played with on a regular basis said that I'm very meticulous when it comes to scoring. But this person was convinced that I scored more points than I should have, and that my score should have been lower than it was, so that he should have won by a larger margin. So that just really ruined the experience for me. So that's why I was like, okay, you know what? I don't want to keep this game. Like now I have bad memories associated with it. So I decided I would cull it. And also when I was playing the game, and at, you know, one point, like he was getting a lot of turns in a row, and there's a lot of take that in this game. So he like completely obliterated my vault. And at one point in time, I managed to regain the pieces and, you know, build up my vault again. But at one point, it seemed like he was you know, like about to just completely obliterate me. But I managed to get pieces back into my vault, but it took like quite a bit of time to do that. But you know, if you're someone who doesn't enjoy Take That, then I'm not sure you're going to like Cosmic Frog. I don't mind Take That, but it had a bit too much of it, and it seemed, I don't know how to describe it. When the Take That just seems more vindictive rather than like more about strategy. I can't really describe it. It just rubs me a little bit in the wrong way, and the Take That was happening in this game felt more vindictive than anything else. I can't really describe how I'm feeling. There were some other thoughts I had about the game when I played it, and I described to my opponent how I felt about it, but now I can't articulate those thoughts because it was a number of days ago. But anyway, that's why I decided to call Cosmic Frog. But before I go into my question, I will just talk a little bit about a meeting I had with Ryan Courtney a few nights ago. So Ryan Courtney is the designer of Pipeline and Curious Cargo and some other really good games. So he offers his, so he does this thing where he he'll put up a few nights for hour-long meetings to mentor people, especially people who are, minorities in the industry, like on game design or whatever. So I had an hour-long meeting with him to talk about my game design, and it was so helpful. Like I learned so much from him in this 1 hour about how to really get your game published and what publishers are actually looking for. So I felt really reinvigorated after this meeting to get back to work on my elephant game design and my other game design that I'm working on. So that was really nice of him to offer up his time like that to people and mentor them. Like he's just very, very generous with his time. So that was a really good meeting. So for the question for the week, I want to ask you, how important is winning a game to you? Do you play to win or do you play to have fun? And how would you feel if after a game has been put away, someone told you that you should have scored lower than you did and should have lost by even more than you lost by? Just how would you feel if that happened to you? And just this is someone, so I post this question on Twitter, and I also post it on a Facebook group in a board game group on Facebook, and it got like 200 comments on it. Like, so a lot of people responded, and a lot of people were like, if this is a regular occurrence, I wouldn't game with that person anymore, because like, who wants to game with someone who is that like petty or that obnoxious? Yeah, maybe. This is someone who, can gloat when he wins games. And also, if I would ever win a game again against him, then it's a game we have to play again until he wins. But if he wins a game, then we never have to play that game again because he won. So I just want to know how important winning is to you and how you would feel in this situation or what you would do. So I guess that's my question of the week for you. So until next week, bye.